You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Best Comics of the Week show. And because we're doing that show means that I'm joined by Japanese AI Gray. What up, Gray?
Hey, Jim, how's it going? All things are good over here in AI Japan.
AI Japan is doing well. I don't know if you can tell. We were just talking for a while before we started. We hit the music. I start. Suddenly, I've lost my voice.
No, you sound really sexy. You sound husky.
Oh, really? Yeah. Thank you very much. But I didn't sound like that before we started, did I? I don't know what happened.
Like fine.
I was just talking normal. It's not like I have a radio voice or anything. I may have a face for radio, but a voice not for it. But
it's those little gnats you keep eating with your or drinking with your coffee.
I have my desk set up somehow without any fruit anywhere. There is a ton of like fruit flies everywhere. Like it's an infestation. And they are kind of getting into my coffee, but they're also, as I was breathing, I was getting some, maybe that's what's happened.
I'm calling sus, Jim. I think all these stories you've got, I think you're making it all up. Come on.
All of a sudden, I turn on a camera, and I'm in like a three-piece suit. I got a tux. I'm drinking wine in one hand, and I got champagne in the other. That'd be pretty good. Maybe we'll have to do that video sometime. But here we are for the best of the week, the best comics of the week. We will go through what we think are the best, but that doesn't mean it's what you would think are the best comics that come out each and every week. And why I say that is because we end up begging on our hands and knees to everybody that if you like any books, even if we mention them, if we don't, please tell us what you liked in the comments below, because this is the kind of positivity of it, trying to get people more into comics. I say it all the time. We desperately need to get more people into more comics, and then that makes everything else take off, and we all have fun talking about it. There's a lot of negativity going around in every sort of facet nowadays, and it's nice to find out what people actually do like. As I say that, I hear my kids screaming bloody murder downstairs. I don't know what's going on, so forgive me for that, but we always start at DC, and we will, as always, and the first book is actually more of a Gray book. Though I do think it'll be on my list. I haven't quite read the whole thing, so I can't fake the funk. I'm going to turn it over to Gray, but it is Batman Superman World's Finest number 28, written by Mark Waid, art by Dan Mora and Travis Mercer. It says here it is $3.99. I'll just throw that in because I think it is a bargain at that price, especially with the art. But I'm going to give it to you. It's more of the Mite stuff, and it has been pretty good. I mean, I'm one that gets a little tired of the Mites. But this has been pretty fun, right?
It has been fun, and for the Mites, Jim, it's not something I've really experienced. I'm quite new to it, so maybe that's why I'm not sick of it yet. But it's a blast, and in this issue particularly, they've got a load of guest stars. You know, there are so many Mites, like it's unbelievable. You got almost as many fruit flies as you've got.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I might have had those kind of Mites as well. At some point. I don't know, but maybe. And even as it's gone on, and actually, this World's Finest book. Obviously, it's a Batman Superman book, but it's had the Titans, it's had the Doom Patrol, It's had the Metal Men. I mean, it has a lot of Metamorpho. It has been really, really cool throughout, being a book where you can get obscure characters. And the Mites being obscure is one thing, but like I said, when you end up having the Mites in a book, it ends up like making it really topsy-turvy, but having them not being there to goof off, but having them trying to, get away from a murder, trying to solve a murder, and actually having guest stars, like you're saying, of even all the Mites that we haven't seen before is pretty cool.
We've got Wonder Mite in here, Wonder Woman, the version, Aquamite, Flash Mite, of course. I tell you what, though, another thing about it is there's kind of a strong focus on Jimmy Olsen, as in, my pal Jimmy Olsen, the kind of bonkers version. He's really good in this. He's been written really well. You feel like Mark Waid is having a good time, believe it or not. Wait a minute, has he got a sense of humour, Jim?
That's the thing. The guy might be, kind of mean and a bully at points, but I think he is kind of funny, and he does really, he might not respect everybody's opinion, but I do think he respects the continuity and respects the Silver Age of the DC Comics as well. Yeah. And it does come through, and I think that he's having a ball doing it, so I think it is fun. And again, we have him doing, with Dan Mora, the Absolute Power deal coming up, and I understand, and I'll never sit here and tell people you should read or shouldn't read. That's up to everybody else. But I hope that people do give Absolute Power a chance. If you are a DC fan, it's a big thing, but there are going to be people who say they will never read anything by Mark Waid again. But I think with this Batman Superman World's Finest, you're missing out on something. And a lot of people were able to get past that before, and then he opened his mouth again, unfortunately.
I know.
But it's one of those things. It is a shame.
I kind of like that kind of thing. You know what I'm like, Mr. Positivity. I do try and focus on positives. And if you go down that road, you can you stop reading everything, don't you? It's like, forget about it. Just focus on the story. And they're having a blast doing this. Both of them. Dan Murray's art, Jim. Dan Murray's art. I know you said it already, but it is fantastic.
It's so good. It's so good. And this is kind of getting on a soapbox, but the idea where there are times and there are things that people have done. I'm not going to mention exactly what they are, but there are things that will make me not want to support a writer or an artist at times. But somebody just saying their opinion and having their opinion be something that I knew it was all along, they're just stating it, I don't let that get in the way. That's kind of that's that big culture war thing. Some people, that's their big thing. It's not my big thing, so I can look past that.
Same,
now, if you end up doing something really, really bad, really hurt somebody, stuff like that, and then you kind of, I have to make a decision and things. But the idea of him actually giving his opinion that couldn't have shocked anybody. I mean, the opinion that he gave was exactly the opinion everybody knew he had, and they were able to look past it at one point. It just was odd to me. But again, that's up to whatever. I'm not going to sit here and get mad and say anything about either or. That's up to every individual person. But it is pretty much the best book at DC, consistently the best one since it came out. So you're kind of missing out. But we're going to move on to the next book, and this is a shocker. It's a shocker to me. Nightwing is my favorite character, more Dick Grayson every iteration. I was very happy when Tom Taylor was announced to be on Nightwing, and the first couple issues, I was into it. I said, oh my God, he loves Nightwing, he respects him. I think that if you go back, and I have the receipts, if you go back to our podcast and you listen, I fell out of favor with this Nightwing book so quickly because I said, nothing is going on, and Nightwing is relying too much on every other person not doing things himself. And in fact, my co-host, Eric, on the DC, he fought me about it. And I'll tell you, I was right, and I like being right. But when it gets back to being good, I'll be there. And that wasn't when you had Bee the Pirate Queen. That wasn't going to do it for me, right?
I read a few of those, Jim. I read a few of those just to see what all the fuss was about. I was like, what is going on here?
We read and reviewed every single issue of Nightwing since the New 52. So we went through the Rick Grayson period. We went through the Grayson period, where you had Tom King and Tim Seeley, which I liked. But we went through that Rick Grayson, and we actually found a couple things that we liked, though overall it was a wreck. Tom Taylor going back to that I didn't need, but he's finally at his final, arc, which means we're getting some things going on. We're getting some things with Heartless. I'm not going to spoil the ending of this issue, but legitimately, the ending cliffhanger of this issue, 115, is the best cliffhanger I think Tom Taylor's ever done. And it's funny, but it's funny in the way of it being so crazy and something I never thought would happen, but makes so much sense. And I just couldn't help it. And in the issue itself, you do get Heartless. You see that he is a manipulator more than what we really haven't gotten a lot of him. We know that he's a kid who watched the Flying Graysons die, also got his teeth kicked in by Dick when they were kids. But that's kind of surface level. This ends up being pretty good. And at one point, here's the one spoiler, but I will say this, because it was leaked out or whatnot. Tony Zuko finds out that Dick Grayson is also Nightwing, and that's huge. But it's also hilarious, because when he sees it, he gets this moment where he stops and looks, and he's like, "Wait a minute, you mean the two people I hate the most are the same people?" And he gets so upset. But it's really, really good. And at the end, it sets up a thing where finally I'm actually like, holy crap, I have to see the next issue of Nightwing. Usually I get done. I think it's a fine book that just never does anything. I've said before, it's like Diet Cola. It might taste okay, but it's nothing. You don't have any calories. It's not helping you out. It just is what it is. And then when you get to the next issue, it's just like you don't remember what happened. And it's just rinse and repeat. And everybody else does things, but this really sets it up. Also, if you are going to go read it, pay attention to when it ends. Last issue ended with this gala and the building's on fire. They're trying to calmly get people out. And you have Barbara with Haley, the three-legged dog, and says, everybody, be calm, follow the adorable dog out the door. In the same point in the next panel, Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson are screaming at people, like losing their mind, causing riots and things. It's really funny. But it has been the first time that I would actually put Nightwing on this sort of list in over a year. So I think it is a pretty good way of saying, you know what, maybe this final arc that he's doing might hit, might be something. But again, I will mention also, this stuff with Heartless, this should have happened a year ago. That's the problem. It should have happened a long time ago.
I heard that's being dragged out, because I've listened to your reviews, yours and Eric's.
Nothing ends up happening. You just end up where I think it's a nice book for people to get into comics with, maybe because the hero does heroic things. But I said at points, Tom Taylor feels like he's more of a PR agent for Dick Grayson than actually a writer telling a story. And that's a problem, especially when you already know how great the character is. You don't have to have that shoved down your throat. We already know that. But again, that's on the list, but we're going to move over to Marvel. We're not going at a quick pace this year.
You got to say respect to Tom Taylor, whatever you think of him. It's 115, so this has been going on for 115 issues, so it must be selling well, mustn't it?
Yeah, he is, and I think he jumped on, like 78, because it did include...
okay.
It included the Tim Seeley stuff, and then Ben Percy, and then that switched up because he didn't want to get involved in the Rick Grayson stuff. So it has, but he had a heck of a long run, and he's won Eisners. I mean, whatever that means, but still.
Yeah, whatever that means these days, but yeah.
People love it. I just think that it is a nice jumping on point for comicdom. And it's also, if you have a lot of dark books and you just want one that the hero is propped up and always said that he's a hero, it's fine.
And Bruno Redondo's art is always good, isn't it? It's always worth a look.
I love Bruno Redondo. I talked to him on the phone once. Me and him were talking at one point back in the day when him and Tom Taylor were doing the whole Injustice book.
Oh, wow.
And I ended up pushing. I actually said at that point that Bruno Redondo, I wanted to be his agent because I thought that he really could. I said, my quote that he loved is, I said, he draws the best version of every character. It's like the classic version of every character. And he ended up, talking to me about that. It was pretty fun. But those were back in that's back in the day when DC actually seemed to like me. They don't like me anymore. So we'll move on to Marvel.
Many years ago.
That DC. Yeah, they used to talk to me all the time. Dan DiDio and me used to talk at points. It was great. I thought I was a mover and a shaker. But here is Marvel, and we're going to start with the big book. Of course, I was going to make a joke about something like Amazing Spider-Man. The big book's Ultimate Spider-Man number 6, written by Jonathan Hickman, art by Marco Cicchetto. He is back on the book, and it's good, and the art's great, and the whole play is this is a fight with Kingpin. I'm telling you, a lot of people like this a lot more than me. I think it deserves to be on the best of. But it ended up where some of the things, like the thing with Kingpin, there's not a lot of setup to that fight. You just end up in this where Harry's like, let's go and fight Kingpin. He's had a hard-on for Kingpin for a bit. But it just didn't really have a setup. They're just kind of staking him out, and then they go. But it was still good. And really the big play was, the wow moment is holy crap, this might be, and people have been thinking, is this like a Juggernaut version of Kingpin, which is scary as hell? Or is it just a souped up deal? He's got tats, he's ready to go, he kicks the crap out of both Harry and Peter, which is cool. But what about you? Why'd you like it?
I love seeing that, it reminds me of the old days, going back to Frank Miller. It's great to see Kingpin as he should be, truly powerful, scary, menacing, a proper threat, Jim. I just look at the size of his hands, for one thing, Jesus. But yeah, I thought it was game over for Harry. I thought he'd had it, and I love that. It felt like there were stakes in this issue. I'm kind of focusing more on, the fight scene. I thought it was a really good fight scene, but I get your complaints. I get the kind of lack of setup.
But again, I still really liked it. But it was we went from 2 down issues.
Yeah, we did.
And then boom, we're fighting Kingpin. There could, maybe with the down issues, maybe you could have shown a little more of the staking out of Kingpin. Maybe talk a little bit more about it. You could have set up a bit better. Yeah. But once you get to it, it was great. And it is one of those weird books where Hickman's writing, and it does seem like at points, especially like this issue, he says, okay, people want action, boom, and the action's great. They also want family, boom, you get family.
You start off with family scene.
There's weird things. And so I ended up having a video about the idea of possibly Peter spoiling identities by having Mary Jane swing around. It ends up being a nice little pinup at the end, but it does feel weird after all the things that were going on in the book and the series, really pushing the idea of, you gotta have a secret identity. even if it's not a thing, there's some other things in this that make me laugh. Something that Gabe pointed out that's really funny. It's framed by Peter telling the story of him getting beat up by Kingpin.
Yeah.
So he comes home and they're like, oh my God, what happened? Now, I will say that I think that the kids are probably drinking water. That water definitely has Zoloft in it because nobody reacts to the fact that Peter's face looks like it's been put through a meat grinder. Like they do react about him being a hero.
Yeah. It's like, what happened to you? Oh, I fell down the stairs or something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, and I'm not
Dad.
saying that my family even likes me. But if I came in the door looking like that, I wouldn't ever even get to the point of hero, superhero. My wife would be making me go to urgent care immediately because he looks like he is just beat to crap. My kids at that age would have been crying. They wouldn't have known what's going on. And everybody's just like nonchalant. And then they react to the superhero part because I think Hickman wants that part to be the big part. But boy, Peter's beat up. But Gabe mentioned the one thing that's funny if you go back and look. The story that he's telling doesn't seem like it would take that long. Right? He's there. Hey, everybody, I ended up fighting Kim. They start the story at sunrise breakfast.
It's breakfast, isn't it, Jim?
And
yeah,
it ends with them going to bed. Like,
it starts at breakfast.
15 hours. 15 hours he's telling that story.
Maybe it was a late breakfast.
Well, people are even saying, but you see the sun rising. That's the worst part. You actually see the sun coming up. They're eating breakfast. I know that a lot of people have breakfast for dinner. This is definitely morning. There is a misplay with the whole deal with that. Because, boy, that story...
That's a heck of a story. Hey, you should start a podcast and call it Weird Science.
And we did have the podcast at one point that was 12, 13 hours long each week, which is insane. But I realize now when my complaint is that the kids seem kind of like, not interested. It's because he was talking for 15 hours. By that point...
They were zoned out. They were gone, Jim. He'd lost them.
They went, yeah. And May's real cute in this. So you get that both plays. You get some really cool action, which really elevates Kingpin, but you also get the family part. Just remember, though, Kingpin is still part of that overall council. He's been put into place for that. And Harry legitimately went up to him and talked trash, revealing that they know all about that. Said to him, hey, we know you're involved. Who's your upper things? Thinking that they were going to, bully the Kingpin. They weren't bullying Kingpin. First off, even without powers, the guy's huge. So, yeah, there's that. It's a huge issue, and some of the huge things are maybe things that might happen because of it. Because I said Kingpin goes off now and is really, really has to find where both Harry and Peter are and who they are because of what was threatened by them about knowing the actual truth of what this world is.
I like the fact that they walked into a trap and they looked really green. They didn't know what they were doing. It felt like it was really early on in their story, which it is, isn't it? They're meant to be like that. They're not like seasoned heroes yet, so that was good.
And people were debating if Peter had Spidey sense, and it seems like that does get activated. But I ended up talking with Wes from Thinking Critical about some of the things, and I said, a lot of times when Peter, and I'm not even a seasoned Spider-Man fan, but I love the idea where he gets spider sense right before he gets hit over the head with a plant or something. It's not quite spider.
Too late.
It's like too late, right? So when he does get it, but does he get it, or is he just like he realizes, oh crap, we're in big trouble? Because I think I would have been crap my pants when I got in there. But there's some jokes even and some fun things about Harry and the secret identity.
My God, I wish he was doing every issue. That's all I can say.
It's so good. But that is probably, of the books that we're talking about, that might be one of my favorites. I just looked and I saw something else. But it is one of the bigger books of the week. The other Marvel pick is a pick of mine. It's a Blood Hunt book. Again, I don't hear anybody talking about Blood Hunt. I really don't. I hope that some people are reading it. But I think now, and I was thinking that the Blood Hunt Avengers tie-in, we actually had that on the list, I believe, last week. It was the better of all of the tie-ins. I now think it still is Wolverine Blood Hunt #2. It's written by Tom Waltz and Juan Jose Rip on art. And it is just, you could read it without even caring about Blood Hunt. If you want to have a story with Wolverine set in the Ben Percy verse that we just got done, you end up having Louise, a vampire hunter that from Gay Paris.
Well, she's cool. I love her design.
I think she is awesome. And her, if you got her and Elsa Bloodstone as a combo, It'd be awesome. I'd love to see both of them fighting against monsters and things like that. I think that'd be cool. You also have Bannister, who even in the issue, they make fun that he's like the big Lebowski dude. That's what he is, but they're going against Maverick and, Team X Maverick that Wolverine has a connection with, that he's joined up with the vampires. Wolverine is trying to fight back against them, save some people along with Louise. And Louise, when they do find out that Blade is the big bad, Louise is upset because that is one of the people who inspired her to do what she's done. So she kind of takes that a little personal. But you don't have to read Blood Hunt to actually enjoy this. And I think it's a really, really good Wolverine versus vampire story that you could just get into. And I suggest people check it out. I think it's really good. The art's really cool. But it's my favorite Blood Hunt book of all of them. But that is it for Marvel. We're going to quickly go to the indie. We have a couple indie books, two of which are fully you. You're the indie guy. I kind of got screwed. My favorite book of the week was Redcoat. It didn't seem to come out. It's listed on the Image site as coming out this week. Yeah. We also got the review copy. I read it. I reviewed it. It's awesome. But most people weren't able to get it. Actually, all people, it seems. It didn't seem to come out. So I'm going to pull that back and have that for next week. And it's definitely, if it came out and people had it in their hands, easily my favorite book of the week. And I ended up giving it I think I gave it a 9.3 and Zach gave it a 9.5. So when it does come out, if you haven't been on the Redcoat, bandwagon, if you haven't been on the Ghost Machine, get on it because they're really good. Next week, Rook Exodus comes. But I just want to mention that would have been on the list. It'll probably be on next week. But
Redcoat, Jim, it's been getting better, I think, with every issue, hasn't it? It's really fun. It's a fun read.
And a lot of books don't get better as you go.
No, they don't.
They hit hard and then they start to, so it's really good.
Off a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I like them. I'm expecting Rook Exodus next week to be great as well. So with that, though, and if you want to see my review, I have a video review on our channel, but you go because the first pick is yours.
Yeah, and it's been a while, but it's good to see Spawn, issue 354. Spawn back in the pick of the week. Written by Rory McConville. It's got art by the wonderful Brett Booth. Worth buying just for that, by the way, this issue. It's Image Comics, of course. $2.99, Jim. What do you think of that? Todd McFarlane has kept the prices at $2.99.
Yeah, and that's actually, I don't think enough people push that. Idea. That's actually incredible nowadays. And yeah, that is a really good J-Man. My man who often writes into the DC Comics podcast, he is a big Spawn fan, and he does push it. Like he says, these are the best buys in comics, which I do believe they are. But you go and tell us about it.
Well, again, it's without the story. It's hard not to spoil the story, but what has happened is basically Spawn and all the Hellspawn have been depowered recently by previous events. So it is a bit of a fresh start. It's a good time to kind of jump in. But as I say, he's fighting vampires. Does that sound familiar at the moment, Jim? But the art it just takes it to the next level, this issue. I'll send you some pages, some panels later just to have a look. But seriously, just action. It's exciting. It's a bit bloody at times. It can be a bit gruesome. So you get that 90s vibe, like a teenager would love this, a teenage boy, I'm sure. But yeah, I just think the story is picking up now. So I'm into where it's going. Yeah, come on.
I love
vampires.
I'm actually, because I have the review copy, I'm looking real quick. I want to see the cover's pretty cool too.
The cover's awesome. The puppeteer Lee, that really weird, like painted cover, he does some cracking Spawn covers.
Yeah, and I'm looking, the art's incredible. It's really good. And I went like two pages and it's already getting bloody and it's getting a lot of action. So the thing, again, if it is, and I actually said to you at one point that maybe I'd start reading Spawn and maybe we'd do something together with it.
Yeah, we talked about it, haven't we, a few
guy,
times.
and we just never had it happen. Maybe we'll have to do it. Maybe I'll have to catch up. Oh my, when his mask kind of gets burned away. Holy moly, it doesn't look good. It is a horror show. But yeah, I mean, it looks good, but it doesn't look good. But yeah, I'd like to check out some of the
feels like there are stakes again,
never...
Jim, with like kind of the depowered nature. So he can get injured and he doesn't recover. He's not got the healing power like he used to. So that's
there better be stakes. It's a vampire story.
There we go, ladies and gentlemen. I'll get my code.
Thank you, everybody. But yeah, so I want to check it out. And like we said, $2.99. You can't go wrong with just checking it. But we will move on to the next book. This is a book that probably everybody listening probably has on their deal. And it's Destro, #1 Energon Universe deal. The big thing about this book is it's coming after Scarlet by Kelly Thompson, which a lot of people, including myself, didn't quite like. I hope it does rebound. I keep mentioning this, but I actually had a guy tell me that one issue of Scarlet, they were done. They were completely done. They stopped reading the Energon deal, and I ended up getting a hold of the guy and saying, maybe you should check out this Destro book. It's better. It's a
Definitely
lot better.
Worth a look.
Than the
Yeah,
Scarlet
come
deal.
on.
Yeah. Why give up that one of a mini? You could just stop reading that mini, but person had issues. But it is written by Dan Waters, who you're more of a fan of than I am. Andre Bresson on the art. It is $4.99, but it's oversized. And I'll tell you right now, I've said this about the last Transformers issue. Me going in, I don't know a ton of the characters. My favorite book is probably the Duke book because it really centered on Duke and learning about some things,
Jim.
whatever.
Yeah, for the same reasons.
Then I like, and I'm talking the G.I. Joe, then the Cobra Commander. Didn't really like Scarlet, but Destro's right there of how I felt at the beginning of Cobra Commander. Didn't know much about Cobra Law. Didn't know much, but I ended up liking it. I don't dislike, like Scarlet, I say I dislike, but I still like it a lot more than a lot of other books that I read in comics. It just was a downer for the Energon stuff. But this Destro book, I read it through a second time and actually liked it a lot more because there's a lot of names and things thrown out, a lot of companies that just kind of went over my head the first time.
I had the same experience, Jim. Exactly the same. Yeah, 2 reads was better.
Oh, yeah, because then when you go back and you realize what's going to happen, it's like one of those things, it almost needs to be spoiled so you know what they're talking about, because what they're talking about, if you know the characters and what's going on, you'll know what kind of might be coming up. It's a weird way to say it, but you end up having the Cobra twins in this, but you have Destro, the most thing, and he's pretty funny. I mean, the idea that he ends up getting these, bats, these armored men, these robots, and he's going to use them to kind of do a personal thing. Cobra Commander thinks it's bull crap, starts talking crap, and Destro's just like, listen, I ain't Cobra. And that's a big thing. But what I like is these armored bats, they just kill everybody. They kill no matter what.
No discrimination there.
No discrimination. And Destro explains it because he's like, Cobra Commander, why are you using these? This is just a personal thing. That's not what we're about. And he's like, listen, there had to be field tests. And they were kind of a little sus. They shot everybody in the face. It was really bad. So Cobra Commander, it's funny. He's like, all right, bring them back. We'll say. He's like, oh, no. I'm not saying that. I'm going to keep them. We'll tweak them or whatever. I'm going to use them. But by the way, I'm not anything to do with Cobra. We're just together now for convenience, whatnot, and go. It does set up that very, very well. And then then you end up where you have him set up his, I guess, nephew, I think they said it was, as this ruler of his land.
That's right.
He goes and sees his, Scottish clan. But then the best is he sets up an arms fair, an underground black ops, black market. All he's doing is wanting to see if anybody else has Energon weapons because he does, and he thinks they're great. And he goes and says, nobody has them. He's like, all right, that's all he really seemed to want to know.
That's right.
And then in the middle of it, one guy comes up and says, hey, Destro, I hear that you have like these robots, these like androids. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, as they show all of them down below in like all in, order, and they're all standing there. It was pretty funny. But you have the Cobra twins where they end up pretty much going and attacking the fair, and that's the big play. And at the end, because of a dud missile, Destro's like, yep, it's war, and he seems very happy about it. But you liked it, right?
I tell you what, Jim, there's a lot that goes on in this book. I think that's why it took 2 weeks to really take it all in. It's a little bit almost chaotic at times. You not find that? There is a lot of story, a lot of characters thrown in, a lot of setup, but I like the tone. I like the kind of almost tongue-in-cheek quality to it. You know what I mean?
And I mean,
fun.
these characters are so over the top.
Yeah, they're meant to be, aren't they?
Yeah, so it works out, especially, an arms dealer, over the top guy. And when I ended up reviewing it and talking about it again, some of the things I kind of struggle with, some of the things, and I did say when I read it, one of the things I thought, it was oversized. Some of the scenes went, a page too long.
Yeah, I can see that.
I thought that they were they just kind of hung a little more than I thought, but that didn't ruin anything. I was just saying it, but a lot of people then responded and said, oh, these characters are spot on. This is what you get here. That character, actually, the one lady that's in it actually was from a Transformers episode, her first appearance. That's all cool stuff. Again, it's nothing that I knew, so it couldn't make it better for me, but
Same
it is
here.
cool.
Yeah,
but I think that, no, I don't. But I still enjoyed it, which I think means a lot. And like Cobra Commander, it did get that feel that we're just getting started, and I think it'll be fun to watch Destro and see how he does interact with
It's
Cobra
bright,
Commander.
it's colourful. The art by Andre Bressan, I really liked it. It looked almost like the cartoon at times, or the old Battle Action Force comics I used to get when I was a kid. It was really good, really fun.
And what I like too, where you have that arms fair, and even when that gets attacked, a lot of the things were like, they look like toys that you can play with and things like that.
Playing with toys.
You know what I mean? So I like that. But we're going to end with another book that is all you. It's a finale. And I know me and you are both Garth Ennis fans, but I actually read the first issue of James Bond. Didn't quite like it. I didn't like the tone of it. And it was one of those things. I just kind of didn't keep up with it. But you're putting it on the list here. Give us the rundown.
Okay, it is James Bond 007. It's actually part 6 of 6, the concluding part of Your Cold, Cold Heart. Written by Garth Ennis. It's got art by Rafa Labosco, colours by Jorge Sutil. I tell you, Jim, I was a bit like you. I dropped after the first issue, but I've got back into it with issue 5 and 6 because it's the conclusion. It reads like a brilliant Bond movie, a movie they should have made. There's so much action in this last issue. It's crazy. We see James Bond. He's not overpowered. He's vulnerable. He's getting beaten up by this huge Russian guy throughout the issue. It's quite funny at times. In Garth Ennis, you know what he's like with his sense of humour and his kind of love of violence. He goes over the top. It really is at times, but just a really fun conclusion, which worked well and did feel like the character. That's what I thought.
Yeah, and maybe I'll check it out. I say that. If I have time, I might want to. I'm not a huge James Bond fan, but I don't mind a good story. So I go. It's weird. James Bond always goes with Star Trek with me. I used to, for some reason, get bored. And I saw 2 James Bond movies in the theater. And they were probably ones that people don't like. For Your Eyes Only and Moonraker were the ones that I saw. And I thought Jaws was the greatest thing ever when I saw Moonraker.
Fantastically, badly, and good at the same time.
Yeah, I watched that in the theater. I actually went. We had a theater in our town that was like a cheap deal and whatever. And I remember going and seeing as a little kid Moonraker
I used to love Jaws
3
as
times.
a kid. That Richard Keel, that giant, the character. I thought he was awesome.
So great. I loved him. And then in Happy Gilmore, I loved him even more. But yeah, Jaws was just the best. And then For Your Eyes Only, I remember my mom was a big Sheena Easton fan. So when they had, she got the single of the theme earlier. Wow. And then we went to see the movie actually because of that. But at that point, I kind of thought I was into James Bond, but then I didn't really dig him either. I just don't like Star Trek. I just wanted to point that out just to make Stork upset. He's a huge Star Trek fan. I'm more of a Star Wars guy, but I'm not even that anymore. But I might check it out. So that is it. I get the feeling,
this will maybe read better as a trade, read it all the way through, because it is a slow start. There is a lot of dialogue at times.
And it is $4.99, so maybe it is better to grab it in trade as well to get a little bit of a cheaper deal. So we haven't done this before, but I will go through the picks once again so people know. We have Batman, Superman, World's Finest, number 28, and Nightwing, number 115 from DC. We have Ultimate Spider-Man, number 6, Wolverine, Blood Hunt, number 2 from Marvel. And on the indie side, we have Spawn 354, Destro number 1, and James Bond 007 number 6. And I said I would have put Redcoat on the list, but it seems like it's going to get in people's hands next week. It'll definitely be on my list next week, but we'll see. We have a bunch of books coming out, obviously. I'm looking forward to it. When the new week starts, I really do hope that every book, hey, Gray, we have 50 books on our show. Unfortunately, we don't rarely get that many, but we might get close. We'll see. But thanks for joining me, Gray. Thanks as always for joining me. Everybody go to the show notes to go see Gray's channel, the Wakasashi's Tea House channel, for reviews and news and comic stuff. And again, me and you do get a little bit down at times because we've been told that reviews don't do well on YouTube.
Don't get views.
It keeps being proven, but we love doing it. We love reviewing individual issues. I try to put out a varied bit of different companies and things like that because I love it. I do love reviews of every sort, but I really do like reviewing books. But
I really like the way you're doing more indies these days, Jim, as well. You're not just focused on the supposed big 2. It's great to see that.
It's weird. It never was the case. Never. No. And I even have a video that I'm working on why my top 5 books are all indie books, and it's crazy. I didn't think that would ever happen, and it's kind of a sad play along the big 2, but it's also pretty exciting to have another option. So there's always something good. But yeah, check out the show notes for Gray's channel. And if you haven't subscribed to either me or Gray's channel, do that. I demand it. But with that, that is it. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Gray. We'll talk to you all later.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.